Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 142nd episode of our first YouTube run through the House of Light expansion for Book of Hours, playing as the archaeologist. I wish I had a more concise way of putting that. So, I misplaced my tablet, but it's just right beside me here. We are opening the Riddling Stair, or what was the proper name for that? Oh, it is the Riddling Stair. Never mind. We're going to be, we're just finishing off with the lessons that I wanted to get from the salon. So the quenchings and quellings will be going into surgeries and exsanguinations. I do have a little bit of an IOU in the sense of getting the Ascendant Harmony back, but we've at least restored the Wind in Waiting. As a more medium-term goal, what I might also want to do is get a Horizon Sight from the Stimfling, but that's not sort of a top-line concern for me right now. Tomorrow, in terms of game time, we are going to read The Queens of the Rivers, so that's the last of my to-read list. And then I expect we'll be getting an offer from Oriflammes before too long, but I'll deal with that when it comes in. As an option too, I'll consider the option of opening up a few of these different areas. So the Fluttering Crypt would be one that I would want to do with Mr. Kill. And the funny thing here is that I'm no more equipped to handle the Fluttering Crypt with the Inescapable Confinement than I was with the Wormwood Dream, because the Wormwood Dream actually gets me more. So I would want to see what I can do with Mr. Kill with the Wormwood Dream rather than the Inescapable Confinement. However, I believe the, where was it? One of the cells. So Impermeable Cell may be a tricky one, but I think the Trapped Cell should be something that we can handle with Reverend Timothy when the time comes. Alright, Domain Reveline. I think we have a surplus of that, but yeah. What's our stock looking like upstairs? Should probably serve that a little more often at the salon, I think, but for now, we'll replace what we took from Red William's cell. Okay, so I should level... Sorry, before I get too far ahead of myself, I should level up the surgeries and exsanguinations. Another fruit plucked from knowledge's tree. Improve the skill to level 4. Now, one of the funny things is, I suspect if I pushed myself... no, I was going to say, if I pushed myself, I might be able to get an element of the soul back in time, but if I wanted to do something at the Motley Bet, that would actually require 90 seconds rather than a minute. So we'd wind up losing the element of the soul for the next day. So we'll just wait. I do want to make sure that I get that Ascendant Harmony at some point, but it doesn't have to be a drop everything and do it kind of goal. Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. The skill is now level 4, its power aspects have also increased. And Didumos, the dream of a star is not apparent to the human eye, but its presence, once felt, could not be mistaken for anything else. Okay, so I think we have, a trip to Crowcross Sands that's resolving itself. Otherwise, we are in good shape. The Whispering Stair. This was the stair this was the stair that the priestesses walked in the time that this was the Abbey of the Black Dove. Their carved faces still guard the walls. Their prayers may still be heard when the airs of the aisle are exceptionally still. So, contains Widow's Candle. I think that's it. So again, as I said, the sort of shorter term goal, maybe we might be able to make something work with a sagging dock, but shorter term goal now I think will be to at least go for the Trapped Cell, and then the Silent Hall is probably the most helpful in terms of things that I could open up Just it gives me that last cooking station. But I don't really need to push too hard. I think until I have a clear idea in terms of where we're getting that remaining rose aspect, I think a Forbidden Epic actually would be just what the doctor ordered for that. But yeah, overall, I don't have quite the same urgency to open up rooms unless it specifically gives me something that I'm looking for. And in this case, is really books that I would want. So I don't think I see the outline of books in any of these rooms. I could see them in the cells, perhaps. Yeah, so a couple here. Don't know about the worm room, though. Worm room? What room is that? I haven't heard anything about a worm room. I don't know where these rumors get started. All right, glass. So basically, in reality, I'm gonna turn that into a loss at some point. And a new iotic essence. I think I had one that I got rid of. That's okay. Got more iotic essence than I know what to do with. Of course, eventually it turns into Orpiment Exultant, but it's a little early for that. Right, memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. So let's take a moment just to see where we're at in the overall scheme of things. So also I had, well, I'll keep the barber's details in place. It's just I like to give myself little reminders of the requirements I'm going for. Okay. So interesting. I seem to have actually made some... notes in terms of how to use those elements of the soul, but I don't know if I actually followed through on them. So when it comes to... So I guess the first question that I would have would be, where exactly do I want to put Path and Pilgrim? I think I'd settled for Birdsong. The alternative would have been Nyctodromy, which basically means it's Birdsong at this point. And then I noted that I had two that I basically put down as certainties for Birdsong. So I'm going to say the highest I can put Path and Pilgrim would be 7. I think it's at 4 right now. So yeah, there wouldn't be a catastrophe if I moved it up. And I think I said Sand Stories was too low. Yeah. Because everything in Birdsong basically needs to be at level 4 at this point. And actually, if memory serves, I think it also said that Rhyme and Remembrance needs to be leveled up as well. So yeah, I'm perfectly content. I think I'd said this earlier. If we're in a situation where I can level up Path and Pilgrim, like basically in this case, what I'm doing is I'm earning myself I'm reducing the trouble of trying to get this thing to its highest level. So let's say I wanted to take Sand Stories, and somehow that was going to wind up in the 7th position. That means I need to find 5 lessons that match that. Now, maybe that'll work, maybe that won't. But in this case, this is a pretty clear case where I have a free spot in position 7. Path and Pilgrim is on the way. It may not be the final one that I decide, but at the very least, it will stop me from having to try and get Sand Stories up to... So if nothing else, what I've done is I've got Sand Stories potentially in a position 4, although I think I said Rhyme and Remembrance was going to be in a slot as well. So overall, though, there's nothing saying that I can't push this one higher, so I'll take the opportunity to do that now. I don't really need to use the health, but I will. And what kind of scale can I throw at this? Yeah, Both Stories works. I could also do Pentiments and Oh yeah, actually, that makes it a little easier. In fact, I can go really crazy, use Inks of Power and add the serpent-styled glass. All right, I can master this mystery, enough scale to match mystery scale. Now, I guess the question here would be, if I wanted to try and open up this room with Reverend Timothy, what would that look like? So I'm going to just sketch this out for a minute to see what the path would be. So I think he would start with one knock. So then we'd use the shaft. So that would take us up to 3, at which point we'd use the Newman. So that gives us another 5, which takes us up to 8. And I could use a tool. Wait a minute, what's the knock tool? Yeah, it's all well and good for me to say we use the tool, but the key is definitely not a tool. Yeah. So I can give him candles, but I don't believe there is a knock tool for him to use. Oops. Okay, so I guess the most extreme option here would be to just give him the drink right away. We are looking to get to level 13 here. Yeah, Sacrament Ascite. Which would take us to 14. The funny thing here is that because it's Shapt, the Newman, and the Sacrament, there isn't actually an easier way to divide it. What I could potentially do would be to find a knock food, so that would probably be something like game chips, and then try and mix that with some sort of lesser drink, but that's more trouble than it's really worth. So in this case, I think I'm happy to hire Reverend Timothy. Reverend Timothy's words always run ahead of him, but his thoughts always catch up in the end. Reverend Timothy enjoys thoughtful conversation, prayer, and tea, and he'll offer his assistance in return for a 1 shilling donation to church funds. We do appreciate the contribution. There's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs, or add a coin to find visitors seeking employment. Now, if I would like, I can turn that, I've got plenty of Glassfinger talks, and I can turn that into a supplemental Sacrament Ascite if I feel too worried about it. But at this point, we're definitely looking to draw down our reserves on that. The bigger question to me right now is, we've got the paths and pilgrims to work with. That's fine, but it's really not enough for me to occupy my day. So maybe what we'll do here is we'll look at Edict's Marshal for a single moon or edge to work with. Yeah, these are all 12s. This is what I was worried about. So how the end will begin if I have to, I suppose. Secret colors, again, another potential option there, but it's got a lot more than I was counting on. Okay. So what was I saying? So we've got secret colors or how the end will begin. Let's just play around for a little bit, see how these all fit on for size. So I think Tridesma Hyra would be my highest moon. Edict Smart, actually, you know what? This might be my highest moon. Now here's the real fun. So I guess if we use the ink, we can get a little even higher. We're still one short. Now the funny thing is the confounding parable brings us... Oh, actually, you know what? The confounding parable brings us exactly where we need to go. So, yep, we've got what we need. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. So I am going to need to find some other places to use, or to use the memories that that emerge. But this isn't a bad way to start. I can see a few extra uses as well. So I can master this mystery. Enough moon to match mystery moon. And cloudy day. Oh yes, and I wanted to build the Ascendant Harmony again. So I think we'll go to the Gullscry workbench. So if we take the Faust, we take the Fife. I think at this point it would be the Bells and Braziers. Yeah, that's an easy one to construct. So a little strangely, this is going to be a bit of a calmer day, and the reason why I want to hold off a bit on using the elements of the soul too much is I'm not 100% sure what's going to be coming out of the 2 books that I read. So there's going to be some leveling up that I do with the elements of the soul. Oops, sorry, just a second. Excuse me. But I can't quite plan for what memories I'm going to get yet. And on top of that, I haven't decided with the secret colors what am I going to put the extra points towards. So we're going to focus on leveling up Reverend Timothy first. And then as we do that, we should get some greater clarity in terms of the rest of the elements. Now, one thing I can do actually is drop some water. So lower the bucket creaking into the dark. The Rector's Assistants, Reverend Timothy, Rector of Brandkrug, ordained by the Church of the Unconquered Sun, a learned man, blessed in the tally, the gate, and the light. So let's have a chat about inescapable confinement. Reverend Timothy is always, always happy to chat. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. This will use up the memory, but boost the assistant's abilities for the rest of the day. If I feel pressed, I could, of course, make the Moth Orchid scented candle, but we're not there. We're really just looking to open the trapped cell for today. We can worry about the others later. Although anything with a 14 knock is sort of fair game. I think that was it, though. In fact, with that in mind, I maybe want to reflect on that and say, well, let's just give him the candle or game chips or something like that. Memories don't last long outside books, but it's made a difference for the day. So let's talk to him about Shapt. Education or beguilement boosts knock and forge. Another thing that I'll do with Reverend Timothy is I will take the opportunity to talk with him, so we'll get the memories for leveling up the skills that I need. We may not know exactly what we're using it all for, but it's enough for me to sort of prime the pump for the next levels I'll be getting. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. It is summer. I'm sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones, eating crumbly cheese and nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. My assistant and I fall easily into conversation. Doubly so when it's Reverend Timothy. All right, here we go. The Sacramentacite. Back in the Dawn period, the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot used this in the rites of the Horned Axe. A nice drop. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. So again, depending on how the day goes, we may use a few more of these elements of the soul to accomplish a few other things, but I kind of want to keep some powder dry as we finish the books that are going to be the source of lessons. A little water splashes on the stones of the well to nourish the mosses there. That's funny. I would have thought that it would fit. With Keeper level Sky, an Ascendant Harmony might conjure a Didymos. Now, I'm certainly not obligated to generate the Horizon site with the Stimfling. In fact, if I'm finding it difficult to get eggs, or if I find other uses for the eggs, I may find it more useful to generate that memory through other means. Really, the next case where I'm probably going to want to use it would be Numa, unless I feel that there's something that I can do with the Barber. But I'm not. We kind of already covered what we can accomplish with the Barber within kind of the current time frame. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm debating on whether or not I want to do another order. I think I'll try my chances for the next day, or the next season rather. But I'm definitely thinking flour, sugar, and butter are high on the list. There's nothing stopping me from doing it. I just know it takes me a while to keep filling in the forms. So down to the Grecians. All right, so now we use Reverend Timothy for conversation. Reverend Timothy is always, always happy to chat. And I'm sure some of you noticed 45 seconds rather than 30. The Queens of the Rivers, a surreal contemporary play by the enigmatic Monica Medina, in which the Queens of the Rivers are murdered one by one. The Queen of the Vistula is poisoned. The Queen of the Dnieper chokes on a fishhook. The Queen of the Tagus is burnt alive. The culprit, it transpires, is the audience. The surviving queens are directed to execute whatever audience members do not escape. A surprisingly lucid epilogue suggests that the correspondence of river names with historical events does provide clues to secret histories behind our own. So, gossip for our trouble there. There's the Path and Pilgrim lesson. And I think, yeah, we can afford one more slot for gossip, but we may want to repurpose this shelf at some point. The scale is going to be a little tricky. Better now. Here we go. Moon, a culmination. The Secret Colors. Black Ellie, disgraced Damascene matriarch of the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot, wrote this while fleeing the agents of the duty. Ellie writes of the secret colors of the sun, the blessed traces of error, weaknesses in sunlight, balancing principles in its reflection. A deeper account of these secret colors, Ellie reveals, was kept at a shrine to the 3 hours of the chancel in the grey rock in the sea, far from the intrigues of the Sisterhood and Church. It is hidden from the common eye, but can be revealed with the arts of sickle and eclipse. So, of course, that would be the other option, but we've got what we needed from there. So this gives me revelation, which doesn't actually directly help me with sickle and eclipse, but that doesn't matter too much. It does matter, though, in terms of being able to build a proper revelations shelf. How am I going to fix that? Well, I suppose I could just make an overflow. I, of course, reserve the option to change this around later, but it's my most straightforward solution. Okay, so the clouds definitely help me out today. The revelation does not. So let's have a think about where we're taking Edicts Martial. I know I don't have a whole lot of time, but we can at least do our best. Sorry, just freeing up some space in my notes. Okay, so as usual, the best way to handle this is just to go one by one through the various rooms. We've got Savage, Hymn, and Seeker thresholds. Neither are relevant here. Cheerful Ditties doesn't cross me over. Foresight, Impulses, no Moon or Edge. Confounding Parables does, though. Storms doesn't. Patterns, Regrets. Hindsight. Fears works. Contradiction, obviously. Salt works. Solace, Gossip, Beguiling Melodies doesn't help. Bittersweet Certainty doesn't give me what I need. Stolen Secret works. Satisfaction doesn't help me, but Intuitions do. So to get to 7, I can use Torg's Cleansing, and then I can also use the Old Wound, Wormwood Dream, and the Clouds. So I think in this case I'll just rely on Torg's. Okay, so that gives me some basic material to work with on here. Let's implement that before I go any further. Okay, so it was Confounding Parables. We did Origins of the Hours, so we're back to Locksmith's Dream again. Moving on from there, we go to Natan's desk, and for that we wanted Fears. Now this one, I remember I was talking about how I keep tripping over this. So we did do 7 Faces of Icarus, so at this point I'll do Exorcism for Girls. Now the Contradiction, so we'll use the Tristan that, although I kind of want to make sure I leave something so that I can level up Edict's Martial. So for that, we had done Victory of Crowns, so we're now on to Book of Thrones. This one's pretty easy to use for Shapt, so I believe that should be Salt. So we're on to a Pale Lady. And then Stolen Secrets and Intuitions. Only one source of Stolen Secrets right now. And then I think we're on to the Orchid Transfigurations. Okay, so the next question would be, is there something that I can take advantage of with Path and Pilgrim? So Fear, for instance, would normally be helpful, but we've already tied it up. So in this case, the Governor's Desk helps me because I can get a Savage Hymn. But at this point, we're out of desks, so I could try and do a couple. So one thing I might have maybe tried to do would be to make one out of the drums using Drums and Dances, but I think in this case we'll just hold off. I guess the more pressing question for me would be what are my plans for this other Edge and Moon? I actually thought we were going to have 2. Now, in practical terms, I guess we're kind of already at the end of the episode, so this isn't something I'm really going to need to figure out for myself, but it would be good for me to, again, just if I follow this earlier principle of saying, you know, if we have higher level memories, it would be nice to try and put the points towards those before we lose, before we use them for the lesser ones. And that's just because if I wind up breaking a skill, it's easier to level up those small ones than it is for me to try and get like level 9 with Edict's Martial. So off the top of my head, because it's an Edge and a Moon, I'm actually thinking that we're probably going to put the points into Trides Mahaira, but I'm not ruling out the possibility of a different entry. Anyways, all of that will be handled in the next episode. I believe that will be Fridays, which means we made it through the week. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.